When the Speed Chess Championship finals concluded in London, the headlines were expected. Magnus Carlsen wins again. A new generation pushes forward. Speed Chess delivers chaos. But watching the event from home, following the games carefully rather than just the scores, a different picture emerged. This was not a story about chaos, it was a story about control, and about how modern speed chess is gradually changing. To understand this, it makes sense to begin not with the final, but with the third place match. That encounter revealed something important about the direction of elite speed chess. The third place match was between Lazavik and Nakamura. The matchup itself already told a story. On one side was Hikaru Nakamura, a defining figure in online speed chess. His instincts, pre-moves, and sense of momentum have made him nearly synonymous with the format. On the other side was Denis Lazavik, representing a younger generation. He is strong, disciplined, and increasingly comfortable in fast formats without relying only on chaos. Going to the match, the expectation was clear. If this turns tactical and messy, Nakamura should be favored, especially in bullet. But that assumption is exactly what Lazavik challenged. In the early blitz games, Lazavik made something clear very quickly. He was not trying to out-Hikaru. Instead of sharp openings or early complications, Lazavik repeatedly chose solid, low-maintenance positions, pawn structures that didn't collapse, and games that didn't resolve quickly. This mattered because Nakamura's biggest weapon in speed chess is not calculation, it is momentum. He thrives when opponents feel rushed and believe they must react. What Lazavik did instead was remove that urgency. The first segment, the 5+1, ended up 4.5 for Nakamura, 3.5 for Lazavik. There was just one draw in the 8 games of this segment, and Nakamura ended up with a 1-point lead. Every game of the first half was decisive, with Nakamura winning 3 games and losing 1. Game 1 was, on a technical level, the best of the first segment. Check out how Nakamura won the following position, which started with 4 vs 4 pawns on the same side of the board. In one of the early games, the position shifted to a rook endgame where nothing was immediately threatened. There was no tactics, no forced lines, just a slight better position that still required careful conversion. Watching from home, this was the moment when the psychological balance began to shift. Nakamura wasn't losing, but he wasn't accelerating either. And in speed chess, that's already a small victory for the opponent. In the second segment, the 3+1, in another key blitz game, Lazavik again avoided simplification that would lead to quick draws, but also avoided sharp tactics. Instead, he kept just enough tension to force Nakamura to make decisions. This is subtle but important. When players pre-move, they're not really thinking, they are executing patterns. Lazavik's position disrupted those patterns. You could see Nakamura spending extra seconds, not much, but enough to matter. 2 seconds here, 3 seconds there, and suddenly the clock, usually Nakamura's ally, was no longer fully under his control. The positions themselves were not spectacular, that's the point. At the end, Lazavik won the segment 6-3. Lazavik essentially won the match in this portion. He later said, "When we started, he got some lead and I was a bit upset about it, but when I won, it increased my mood and I felt that, okay, now I'm playing better and probably even good, so everything can happen." Lazavik won the first 2 games to take the lead for the first time. Both were nice technical wins, featuring a queen and knight endgame in the first and a half-piece endgame in the second. The latter was smooth and one-sided, and perhaps a sign of overambition from Nakamura, as 20 rook a6 ceded total control of the b-file. Lazavik made the rest look deceptively easy. Lazavik was not winning by brilliance, he was winning by taking Nakamura out of his comfort zone. After suffering those 3 losses in a row, Nakamura won thanks to a simple blunder. The commentators described the following 2-move tactic as the biggest gift in the event so far. After a draw, Lazavik regained the lead with an exchange sacrifice that only led to equality, but one that caused Nakamura to lose on time. After 3 fighting draws, Lazavik finished the segment with another win with the black pieces. This one featured his best attack of the match. Then came the bullet portion, which is where most viewers probably expected the match to swing decisively. Lazavik had a 2-point lead going to the final segment, Nakamura's strongest. This is Nakamura's territory. Nakamura won the segment, but he stopped short by just one game of evening the score in the time allotted. There were just 3 decisive games out of 9. In fact, it was Lazavik who took the first win of the segment in a game 3, augmenting his lead to 3 points. But again, Lazavik made a very specific choice. He didn't turn bullet into a pre-move contest. He avoided obvious recaptures that invite instant pre-moves. He kept pieces on the border longer than expected. He forced Nakamura to react instead of anticipate. From home, watching the clock was more instructive than watching the board. Lazavik's time usage stayed stable. Nakamura's became erratic. This doesn't mean Nakamura played badly, it means he was pushed into a type of bullet chess he doesn't usually have to play. In the next 5 games, Nakamura strung together 2 wins, reducing the deficit to just 1. The second featured a pretty bishop sacrifice, though if the piece is taken, white immediately regains the piece on e6. Nakamura came close, and he was winning on demand in the final game. In the final seconds, however, he allowed a perpetual check, and with that, Lazavik won the match. By the end of the match, one thing was clear. Lazavik had won not by being faster, but by dictating the kind of speed chess being played. That matters because it sets the context for the final. Before moving to the championship match, it's worth pausing on what Lazavik's win actually showed. He showed that elite speed chess is no longer just about instinct and aggression. Players are learning how to play slow-down, fast chess, how to force a structure, how to make even bullet feel technical. And with that in mind, the final takes on a very different meaning. The championship match between Magnus Carlsen and Alireza Firouzja was, in many ways, a clash of philosophies. Firouzja represents the sharp edge of modern speed chess, fast calculation, tactical courage, and a willingness to push positions to the limit. Carlsen stands for something different, not speed, not calculation, but judgment. From the opening games, it was noticeable that Magnus was not trying to overwhelm Firouzja. He avoided ultra-sharp openings, he accepted slightly inferior positions if they were playable, he steered games toward endgames and unbalanced but stable middle game. Watching from home, this looked deliberate. Magnus was not trying to win quickly, he was trying to define the match. Firouzja, to his credit, didn't shy away. When opportunities arose, he took them. And there were moments, especially in faster segments, where his tactical ability created real danger. Carlsen won the first segment, the 5+1, 5.5, 3.5. Carlsen pointed out that, like last year, Firouzja was able to take a 1-point lead in the first portion, but not after that. Once Carlsen gained the 2-point lead in this portion, he never let go. The players traded wins in the first 2 games, with Carlsen taking game 1. Firouzja handled a Catalan game just about flawlessly for 43 moves, but a first mistake on move 44 was all it took to lose the game. In the next game, however, the French Grandmaster suddenly won on time, with a pawn up and a winning position anyway. And after a draw, we saw the pattern repeat. Carlsen won a game and Firouzja won right back. This time, the French number 1 was just as ruthless with his technique. Firouzja won another game to take the lead for the first and only time in the match. But the world number 1 won the next 3 in a row to take a 2-point lead. The first of those games featured a wicked time scramble with Firouzja finding incredible dynamic chances from a worse position. Even Carlsen couldn't believe it when his opponent lost on time. The Norwegian Grandmaster won 2 more games, with the last one being extremely one-sided, to finish with an emphatic lead. 2094 was a decisive mistake that allowed Carlsen to take the center and then decisively pressure the c-file. But the pattern was consistent. Firouzja would strike, Magnus would absorb, and then the game would continue. Carlsen told John Sargent during the break, "It's generally very hard to control matches against him because he raises the complexity level, and honestly, I'm just having a lot of fun. It's a great match so far." Curiously, in all previous SCC finals, the player to win the 5+1 portion always won the match, and this year was no different. Though Firouzja matched Carlsen's score in the 3+1 portion, it meant he was still down by 2 points. After starting with 2 draws, Firouzja was the first to win a game in the segment. As international master Levi Rosman pointed out, the game incredibly featured 3 exchanger sacrifices, 2 by Carlsen out of desperation, and 1 by Firouzja to convert the advantage. One of the most instructive stretches came in the middle of the match, where Magnus repeatedly reached positions that were neither clear winning nor clearly drawn. Carlsen not only converted well, but he also saved some dire situations. The next game is a key example where the champion managed to hold a bishop down position. These are uncomfortable positions in speed chess. There is no obvious plan, no immediate tactics, just long-term pressure. And this is where Magnus excels. Carlsen won a positional masterpiece in the next game, first outplaying his opponent on the king side and then transferring that advantage to the left side of the board as well. During the transmission, GM David Howell praised, "That could have easily belonged in Nizovic's My System." Two draws followed, though Carlsen saved another lost position in the second. It was a terrible sign for Firouzja that Carlsen won the next game, after trading down into an equal king and pawn endgame. Instead of forcing the issue, he let the clock become part of the position. He trusts that over time Firouzja would have to make more decisions, and with that, more chances to slip. When the match entered the bullet phase, the contrast with the Lazavik-Nakamura match became very clear. Magnus did not try to win every game. He allowed repetitions when they favored him, he simplified when simplifying was correct, he pushed only when the situation demanded it. Firouzja trailing had no such luxury. He had to take risks. Firouzja was not able to pull the same miracle he did in the previous match against Nakamura. It started with what Rosman called a disaster of a first game for Firouzja, and after a draw, Black won nearly every game that remained. In bullet chess, the risk does not usually appear as a blunder. It shows up as small inaccuracies, a premature pawn push, a missed tempo, or a king left slightly exposed. From home, it felt less like a fight and more like a gradual tightening of the net. There was a glimmer of hope for Firouzja in the following game when Carlsen lost to Howler. It was a rook and 2 pawns versus a rook and 1 pawn, and Carlsen was at the side with the extra pawn. By the final games, Magnus was not dominating the board, he was controlling the conditions. Carlsen won 2 of the next 4 games, lost 1, and drew the last to finish with a 3-point lead. In all, his lead was never realistically at risk. Firouzja said that his main goal was to qualify for the Esports World Cup, and that today whatever would have happened was a bonus. He also mentioned that his previous marathon match against Nakamura drained him and he ran out of energy at one point. He said, "I managed to put up a fight, but I completely lost my energy after the 5+1. The runner-up left with a positive comment for the fans and the experience. He said, "It was a great experience here with all the fans." Carlsen said, "It was probably the most fun Speed Chess Championship match I have been part of," a sentiment that he echoed in several of the interviews he gave during breaks. He added, "I was thinking halfway through, this is so much fun. Even if I were to lose, I could sort of live with it." Speaking of the match dynamics, he said, "It felt as though I just outlasted him in the end, and as Alireza said, he was kind of not quite there at certain moments, which really made up for the fact that I was giving him a few chances." At the end, when the interview asked if Magnus would have a message to the crowd, he said, "I would like to give a little message to the crowd here. You're allowed to root for the favorite sometimes." Looking back at the event as a whole, the storyline becomes clearer. Lazavik's win over Nakamura showed that the new generation is learning to control speed chess, rather than simply embracing chaos. Magnus' win over Firouzja showed that mastery of this control still belongs to him. Speed chess at the highest level is evolving. It's no longer just about who can move fastest, it's about who can decide how the game is played. And that's why, once again, Magnus Carlsen walked away as a champion. Not because he was the fastest player in London, but because he understood the game better than anyone else. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing to the channel, and I will bring you the next events and much more. Thanks for watching, see you next time.